Have you ever had something so outrageous happen that you questioned whether reality was even real anymore? That's exactly the kind of morning I had when I stepped outside and found my driveway completely empty. My car, my silver Honda Civic, the one I'd spent years scraping and saving to buy, was gone. Just gone. No shattered glass, no broken locks, no tire marks, nothing. My chest tightened as I spun in circles, hoping maybe I'd just been tired the night before and parked somewhere else. But no. The spot was bare and my car was missing. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called the police, already bracing myself for the nightmare of insurance claims. But while I was on the line, something caught my eye. Parked across the street, perfectly lined up in front of a familiar house, Karen's house, was my Civic. My jaw almost hit the ground. That's right, her. Karen, the HOA president, queen of meddling, ruler of everything petty and pointless in our neighborhood. I stormed over and pounded on her door. She answered with her blonde bob perfectly in place, a floral cardigan draped like she was about to host tea with royalty, and that smug little smirk only Karen could pull off. Before I even spoke, she chirped, "Oh, you're welcome. I took your car last night for an emergency. Don't worry, it was for the good of the community." My head spun. She'd taken my car. Without permission. When I demanded the keys back, she folded her arms and said, "Actually, since it was used for HOA business, it technically belongs to the association now." I laughed, certain this was a bad joke. But her cold stare told me she was dead serious. She'd not only stolen my car, she was claiming ownership. My fists clenched at my sides as I tried to keep calm. "Karen, give me my keys, now!" She slammed the door in my face. That moment marked the start of the wildest, most insane war I'd ever had with the HOA, and it only went downhill from there. The next morning, I tried again. This time I came ready. I hammered on her door until she finally opened. Same folded arms, same smug grin. "Karen," I said, slow and sharp, "explain why you thought you could take my car without asking." She sighed dramatically, as if I were the problem. "There was an HOA emergency meeting last night. The clubhouse printer broke, and I had to get to the office supply store before closing. None of the other board members were around, and your car was conveniently sitting in your driveway, so I borrowed it." Problem solved. My jaw nearly hit the porch. Borrowed? Without permission? That's not borrowing, Karen. That's stealing. But she didn't flinch. She leaned in with this gleam in her eye and whispered, "Technically, as HOA president, I have rights to community resources in emergencies. Since your car was on HOA property," she gestured vaguely toward the street, "it falls under our jurisdiction." I wanted to scream. The delusion was unbelievable. "Karen, my driveway is not HOA property, and my car sure as hell isn't either." But instead of backing down, she doubled down. "Well, maybe if you actually attended HOA meetings, you'd understand the bylaws. This is about the greater good of our neighborhood." Just then, her husband, this quiet guy I'd hardly ever heard a word from, peeked out from behind her. He muttered, "Karen, maybe you should just give it back." But she spun on him and silenced him with one glare so sharp it could cut glass. That's when it clicked. She wasn't just making excuses. She was setting herself up to keep my car. Later that day, I found a notice taped to my front door. Official HOA letterhead. I tore it down and read, "Due to its use in an official emergency, the silver Honda Civic is now considered an HOA asset until further notice. All disputes must be submitted in writing to the HOA board." I almost laughed from how insane it was. She had actually typed it out like some tyrant seizing land for her kingdom. At that moment, I knew I couldn't just roll over. This was going to be a fight. And if Karen thought she could outsmart me with her twisted HOA rules, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The next day, I made up my mind. Enough was enough. If Karen wanted to keep playing her ridiculous HOA power games, I was ready to fight back, with proof, with law, and with a plan. First step, call the police again. But this time, I made sure an officer came out in person. When Officer Ramirez showed up, I explained everything. Karen had taken my car without asking, used it for some bogus emergency, and now she was refusing to return it. The officer narrowed his eyes. "Do you have proof that the car is yours?" I pulled out my registration, insurance card, and driver's license. He looked them over, nodded, and crossed the street to Karen's house. I watched from my porch as she opened the door. Immediately, Karen launched into a performance, arms flailing, voice so loud the entire neighborhood could hear. "This is an HOA issue. He's being selfish. That car was used for the good of the community." But Officer Ramirez stayed calm. "Ma'am, the vehicle is legally registered in his name. You cannot claim it as yours." Karen, of course, wouldn't admit defeat. "Then the HOA claims it. We voted on it," she snapped. That was a flat-out lie. There'd been no meeting, no vote, nothing but her own imagination. Still, she stood her ground. Finally, the officer laid it out plainly. "If you don't hand over the keys right now, this will be treated as theft." Karen huffed like a child, stormed inside, then came back dangling the keys between her fingers. Instead of giving them to me, she let them drop onto the driveway and muttered, "Ungrateful. After everything I've done for this neighborhood." I bent down, picked up the keys, and finally felt some relief. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. And I was right. 2 days later, a new letter appeared in my mailbox, on HOA letterhead, of course. This one accused me of violating HOA cooperation standards and slapped me with a $500 fine for misusing community resources. My car, my own car. That's when I realized this wasn't about the Civic anymore. This was personal. Karen wanted revenge for standing up to her. Fine. If she wanted war, I'd take the fight straight to the people she thought she controlled. I started knocking on doors. At first, neighbors were hesitant. Karen had kept everyone in check with her petty fines and intimidation for years. But slowly, the stories spilled out. A family was fined because their trash cans stayed out past 9 a.m. Another family was threatened over planting flowers outside the approved color scheme. A couple was humiliated for putting up a small garden gnome. People weren't loyal to Karen. They were afraid of her. I suggested we call a special HOA meeting. With enough signatures, we could force it. And within 48 hours, I had more than enough support. Word spread fast. Karen had finally crossed a line she couldn't erase. The night of the meeting, the clubhouse was packed. Karen strutted to the front like she owned the place, clutching her thick binder of bylaws. But when she looked out and saw neighbors glaring instead of nodding, the confidence in her eyes faltered. I stood and calmly explained what had happened. Karen took my car, claimed it was HOA property, and even fined me afterward. "That's not leadership," I told the room. "That's abuse of power." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and then, one by one, people spoke up. The Johnsons told their story about unfair fines. The Parkers described being shamed over their garden decorations. Even a few of Karen's own board members admitted they were sick of her bullying. Karen's face turned beet red. She slammed. Her binder shut and shouted, "This is slander! You're twisting my intentions!" But the room wasn't with her anymore. Finally, someone made a motion. Remove Karen as HOA president. Hands shot up all around the room. The vote wasn't even close. Karen's reign was finished. She stormed out of the clubhouse, muttering about ungrateful neighbors and lawsuits. But it didn't matter. The community had spoken. I kept my car. The new HOA leadership even sent me a written apology for everything I went through. More importantly, the neighborhood finally felt free, like a huge weight had been lifted off everyone's shoulders. And Karen? She still lives just down the street, but these days she avoids me completely. Funny how the same woman who once thought she could steal my car now can't even look me in the eye. Sometimes standing up to a bully doesn't just change your own life, it changes an entire community.